just do this. And now you are all good to go.
Great. Thank you, Seth.
You're very welcome. You'll see alerts on your screen. Just click the got it. That's all you need to do.
Got it. Okay, great. Great. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Lisa Bertola and chair of the Scituate Community Choice Electricity or Scituate Community Choice Aggregation Committee. And we're gathering today to get an update from Good Energy. Daria Marks is kind enough to join us and give us a presentation on the state of the affairs in terms of our pending approval with the Department of Public Utilities, and look at the next steps, look at what other communities who have done this are experiencing, and kind of flush out some of the fine tuning and guidance that the town will need as they go into the market. So that's the sort of a high level summary of our agenda. And I guess as a point of order, and Lisa Scanlon, feel free to pipe in here because you are have been the secretary and are the secretary, although I know that might be changing soon. We do have to roll call to begin. So let's start with that. And again, I'm Lisa Bertola, the chair. Do we want to go around in terms of who we see in our, I can go down the line in terms of committee members.
You should call the names because we're not all in the same order on everybody's screen.
Okay. All right. So Bill Chapman.
Here.
Okay. Jamie Fessenden.
I'm here, and
Here.
Lisa, just a note, I have
Can
to,
you hear me?
yeah, Bill, we heard you.
I'm sorry. I didn't catch that.
Lisa, Jamie, I have to leave at 6:30, just as a
Okay.
note,
Okay.
but
Yep. And Jerry Kelly,
Here.
Kathleen Cerruti,
Here.
Lisa Scanlon,
Present.
Scott Greenbaum,
Present.
and then we have our guest, Daria Mark.
Lisa,
Yes.
can I make a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, please do.
And is there a second?
Second.
second,
Okay, Lisa, do you want to do the roll call vote on approval of the agenda?
I do. Bill Chapman,
Approved.
Jamie Fessenden,
approved,
Kathleen Cerruti,
Approved.
Lisa Scanlon,
Approved.
Scott Greenbaum,
Approved.
and myself approved. Jerry, you started, so we're good, right?
No, and Jerry Kelly, aye.
Oh, thank you. I guess you do have to. I'm sorry about haven't done this for a while, so I appreciate the input.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've done too many meetings with Robert's rules.
Why aren't you chair, Jerry? Anyway, that's fine. Great. So the agenda is approved, and first up on the agenda is reviewing the final DPU approval with Daria from Good Energy. So Daria, are you able to share your screen or begin?
Can you hear me and see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
yes,
Yes, perfect. So I'm Daria Mark. I work for Good Energy, who is the town's consultant in bringing this program to fruition. So we are at a really exciting time. You have what's called a contingent approval. So this is when the Department of Public Utilities says, yes, the plan is good to go, except for these, I can't remember the exact number of modifications they wanted us to make to all sorts of different materials. So when those modifications have a final approval, that's when the program can officially go out to bid, launch, etc. So I just want to preface this with, I am not coming here to you today with a timeline of launch. I'm coming here today for a couple of things that the committee should really start thinking about, that we can prepare ahead of time so that we can be as nimble as possible when the time for launch comes. So let me get started, please interrupt me anytime when you have questions. This is really meant to be a session where there's discussion, and happy to answer any questions that come up. So I think it's really important. Let me preface this. One of the first things you need to decide as a committee is what guidance will you provide for that standard product that the program is going to have, where most everyone who's going to join the program will wind up. I'll get into the four products that you have, but that standard product is the one that is for the automatic enrollment. It's the one that most everyone will stay in and choose. So in order to pick that, I think it's really helpful to understand where the state is right now, or as scholars will say, the Commonwealth is right now of Massachusetts, as far as their renewable energy requirements. So all the products in your program will meet these requirements in the years that are stated here. That's the baseline. What you do above that is the discussion today. Are there any questions on that? Like where we're going on this? Okay.
Just a point of clarification, Daria, when you say standard product, you're talking about people on basic service that would switch over seamlessly to what we used to call it like the default, but we call it the standard product.
Yeah.
Okay.
Standard default, same. Yeah, exactly. So
for clarity,
unless you make it.
For clarity, that's the green line, right? Or
So let me go through what is shown here and like what do these mean and what are they, what's their kind of meaning, so that you could help you kind of sort out so the clean energy standard, the RPS carve out, when advocates talk about renewable energy, they most always talk about this dark green color. It's the Massachusetts Class 1 renewable energy certificates that are used to meet that dark green carve out. So we are in 2022, % of your electricity that has to be met with these solars, these winds, these low impact hydros. That's that 20%. So that's the Mass Class 1, has to be built after 1997. Okay, so that's the newest, cleanest sources. The next in the stack is the dark blue. The dark blue came in fairly recently. It's the clean energy standard, it's the remainder. It has a few different things that can be included there. You could build large new nuclear, which no one is doing. You could bring large-scale hydro in, which, as you may know, was the whole conversation about the transmission line through Maine, which is now unknown. Or you could also meet that 4% with those same Mass Class 1 certificates that would be in the dark green. So because there is no new nuclear, and because we are not getting large-scale hydro from Quebec right now, that 4% is still being met the same way that 20% is met. Then things on top of that, clean energy standard existing is the light blue. That's older nuclear facilities that still need to be operating, and still the large hydro facilities that still need to be operating. That's a little bit of like an incentive for them to keep going, producing electricity. RPS Class 2 is the same as the RPS Class 1 carve out, but they're older. So that light green 4% is pre-1997. Still wind, still solar, all those things, but they're just older. And then the last yellow is the RPS Class 2 waste energy. That's Massachusetts burning trash to generate electricity. So when advocates most often talk about the renewable content of things, they're really focusing on that bottom 20%. So when we talk about like how much will the standard product have, it's that bottom 20% plus something. So I wanted to center this. I'm going to provide more detail. I'm going to add more things to this, but I just wanted you to understand where the state is in its requirements, because that's the baseline. You can see the requirements increase. That dark green is going to increase 2% until 2024. Then it starts increasing 3%. So we get to 40% by 2030. So anything Scituate adds on top is in addition to these numbers.
So it's basically those clean energy standard recs become clean RPS recs class 1, right? Is that or are those just the clean energy standard recs retired that they can't get them anymore for those whatever facilities that's on? I'm just seeing if this is a shell game.
This is not a shell game. I'm not sure where your question is, but whatever Scituate would be adding would be the same as what that dark green is. So you would be effectively adding on top of, you'd still have the dark blue, you'd still have the light blue, you'd still have the light green, you'd still have the yellow. So those are still going to stay. When we talk about adding mass class 1, you're talking about apples to apples on that dark green piece at the bottom. It's the same mechanism, it's the same requirements, potentially even better, but the base is the same.
2024 to 2025, the blue drops 1% and the green goes up 1%. So that's why.
So this is where the state hasn't. This is where the state hasn't reconciled their requirements yet. So until Maine voted down the transmission line, and just to be clear, I have no influence on state requirements, but the thought was that dark blue would expand substantially to accommodate that incoming hydro, because it was going to be a substantial amount of hydro. I don't know what the state is going to do now. Obviously, actually, what is not shown on this is that if you follow the requirements as they're written, that dark blue actually gets negative, which is ludicrous and like not something that is ever done in requirements. So that clearly needs to be adjusted. How, we don't know. But again, the place where you should focus and the place where, is going to make the difference is that dark green at the bottom.
Yeah.
All right. So keeping that in mind, I personally love this chart. I don't know if it's interesting to you, but this is where our communities that have added percentages, this is what they have done in the past, and I have ordered them left to right based on the last time they renewed their contract. So when did they make the decision for the additional percentage to their product, and what did they choose? Does this make sense? So for example, Arlington, their community that's going to renew this year, their contract expires at the end of the year. Their prices expire at the end of the year. So they're going to have to renew this year. That'll be their third renewal. And for example, you see in Arlington, I have 2 bars. The lighter bar is their first contract. The darker bar is their second. So they started at 5% way back when. The last contract, they went to 11 because everybody else was going to 10 and they wanted to be a little bit better. And so they went to 11. So this year they'll renew for the third one and we'll see what they do. Brookline, same. They're also up for a renewal this year. So they started with 25. They went to 30 on their second contract. Medford launched their first, they're up for renewal this year also. They started their program at 5%. Somerville started at 5, went to 10. They're up for renewal this year, also looking at percentages. And Winchester, same 5 to 10, also looking at percentages. Okay, so then the next group, Dedham. Dedham has started way back when. They have 3 contracts under their belt now. And their first 2 were 5%, then almost just over a year ago, last January, they renewed for their third contract, went to 10. Fairhaven is an interesting one, a small community on the south coast. First 2 contracts, they didn't have any additional renewables at all. And then Advocates asked the town to increase that to 10%, and they got that on there. Also, the contract they started January last year. Hamilton was had 5, stayed at 5. Millis launched last January with 5%. Stoneham last renewed like a year and a little bit, well, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, they went from 5 to 5. Sudbury went from 5 to 15%. Westford was just like Fairhaven, their first 2 contracts, didn't add any renewables. On the third one, they went to 10%. So again, they also started that last January, so a year and a month ago. That third contract they started a year and a month ago. So that's the next batch. And now we have the batch that was either renewing or launching last year. So Bedford is started at 5% and then seized the opportunity and went to 20%. And their price, it was amazing because their price basically didn't change. So that was just an incredible win. This is why we work so hard to bring these programs forward, to do the strategic bidding. Gloucester, 5 to 10%, also their price didn't change. Melrose went for 5 to 10%. This was also last year. Milton launched their program last year. They, before your group of 6 that was released from the DPU, they were kind of the latest to come out from there. Rockland last year, they renewed for their second contract. They chose to go to 10%, and Waltham launched at 10% last year also. That was kind of a lot.
Yeah,
but I
so
hope it.
Daria, the town that you talked about, 5 to what, 35 to 25?
5 to 20, probably, Bedford.
Bedford. So just maybe give us a context. How can that happen? It's all about timing. Is it all about timing of the rates at that day were just so competitive that they could wedge in another 15% or 20, 15% over what they had? Is that how, what is the thinking, or what is the, when do you jump, I guess, is the.
Yeah, so I think Bedford's a really great example where you want to see your opportunity, right? And when you're bidding electricity, you're bidding 2 things. You're bidding the base, right? So when I showed you those state requirements, there's going to be a price of electricity that meets those state requirements, because you can't not meet the state requirements, right? So you've got that piece. And then you're thinking, well, like, how much can I put on top? So there's 2 things that you're bidding. It's the state requirements plus the renewable energy certificates that go on top of those state requirements. So what happened in Bedford's case, and I think I have this right, is that with their first contract, renewable energy certificates were a little bit cheaper, but the base electricity was a little bit more expensive. And what happened with their next renewal was actually, even though renewable energy certificates went up in price, the base electricity we were able to get them was low enough that they were able to fill that space with that extra 20% and still come out about even. I'm not saying that we can guarantee that every time, but that is just like an incredible opportunity to take, because just the impact you're making. I mean, again, remember, this is the place where thousands of people in your community are going to be. This is just, that's human inertia and the standard product. Okay, great. So we talked about this. Oh my gosh, I did not change the word municipality. So Scituate standard, Scituate basic, Scituate 50, and Scituate 100. These are your 4 products. When we were talking about the automatic enrollment, that's the standard one. That's the leftmost one. That's the one that we're talking about. Like, so what percentage above of what the state requirements are do you want to add? And when I say that, really, the best thing for the committee to do to take advantage of those opportunities where the base price might be low enough that you could get more renewables in and still be competitive, even though the DPU requires that I say that we can never guarantee savings. I just want to throw that in there because the Department of Public Utilities will ask whether or not we've ever informed the community that we cannot guarantee savings. So I'm letting you know we cannot guarantee savings. We don't know future utility rates. But what you want to do with that standard product is provide guidance, and guidance in the form of like, we want at least this much. It would be good to know kind of what's your base. And then it would be good to know, how much tolerance do you think the community has for paying additional dollars for renewable energy? Now, keep in mind, we're not, we're looking for the right opportunity to go to bid. If you say, we want a minimum of 10%, if we're like, there's no way we're going to get 10% in the market that's at this current moment, we wouldn't take you to bid. So we are looking for the right opportunity. So this is kind of like, we have the right opportunity. How much are we looking, like how much does the town want to add? So 4 products, standard. The basic product is really, really important because you're going to have people in the community who are going to say one of 2 things. They're either going to say, I don't believe in renewable energy. I don't want any of that. They could still benefit from the program. They could still benefit from the price that lasts multiple years and still get that same apples to apples. What the state requires, that's the basic product. Or you're going to have people in the community who cannot pay an extra cent for their electricity and who really need the best, absolute best price. That's a great product for them also. And then the 50 and the 100%, self-explanatory, half your consumption versus 100% in mass class 1 regs. So,
Daria, can we back up once? I just want to make sure everyone on the committee, I actually had to remind myself about the basic option here. The basic option here means we could potentially, through this program, lower the rate for people that don't opt out. People that opt out stay with their current utility or third party, provider, and, we don't touch them at all. But the basic program here means if we get really competitive rates, assuming more competitive than the utilities basic service rates, potentially people that choose that basic option get a lower rate thanks to this program than they would have if they opted out. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
So correct. So again, because the DPU, all things like can't guarantee savings in the future.
Right,
I don't know utility rates, and I don't know what your program rates are going to be. But from past experience, which is again not an indication of future performance, just also another disclaimer in there.
Yeah.
Yes, because the renewable energy, that whatever percentage that you're adding to the standard product has an extra cost. The basic option won't have that cost. So it's a great place for those who are extremely price sensitive, to wind up and choose, any, low income, fixed income, whoever needs that option. It's a great choice. You're also going to get people who just say like, well, I don't want this program. They can opt out anytime. The program is for voluntary participation. But that basic choice, we find that if the community does enough outreach and there's enough explanation of the fact that this is a great program, there's long longevity in rates, it's competitive, we do see enough people going to that basic option to justify that it really does hold value. We see about, depending on how much interest there is in renewables, people going to the 100% also. So both really important.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I just wanted to clarify because I hadn't thought of that as much about the basic option being attractive to, like you say, fixed income, low income, people that really need to watch. And this program benefits people in many situations and many categories. So I just think that's really, like you say, it holds the value.
It's really important that this program really serves everyone in Scituate and everybody can find a place for themselves there.
Right.
So,
Daria, I have a question. This is Kathy. Can you hear me? Yes, Daria?
Yes, I could hear you. Yep.
Okay, great. I just need a little bit more explanation on I didn't expect the 3 things on the right of the line. I thought basic would be on the left and then the standard would be on the right. So I just want to understand why there's three things on the right side of the screen and standards on the left side. Like the basic
Yeah.
is not the default, the basic is, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, it's the semantics, Kathy, because I think that's where I got tripped up too. We used to
Yeah.
call the basic like the default or the, because
Yeah.
basics, but it's the standard or the default where people are switched over who are on basic service is the standard product that would have a wedge in of renewable energy credit.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you got to opt for basic. I see.
Well, basic here means not, basic here means no additional RECs, no additional green component beyond the state requirement.
Yep. And we do see people choosing, we see hundreds of people choosing it. So it's not, there isn't a burden that people are unable to sign up for it. We definitely see people choose that. And there are thousands who choose the standard product because it's kind of a good in between.
I have clarification that, so the municipal 100 means, I think this year, what you had the green stack, which is, I think 20 or 22% this year. And then the other 78 or 80% with the mass rec ones, or do the blue stack stay in there, the nuclear stack and the waste stay in there, and then we're buying recs to get to 100%? Or do
It
you
would
know?
be mass class 1.
So everything would be mass class 1.
Yeah, so if you want to count, you still have to meet the state standards. So you're going to go above 100%, even though it's like a little hard for people to wrap around their head around how you could ever get to like your electricity to be above 100% of something. It's not more electrons flowing to your house. You're just meeting compliance with more than was needed. But that's a good thing because you're creating demand for more renewable energy in New England.
And then the 50%, also 50% would be 50% would be the green things, and then the blue. Now I'm remembering, light blue, the dark blue, light blue, and yellow would end up on top of that, and that would get you to somewhere in the 80s or 90s or whatever it is. Is that essentially what it is?
Yep.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that we understood what we're getting.
Yeah, so it's mass. So remember when I was saying like when advocates write plans for this and talk about these things and not just advocates, but municipal officials and communities and committees and such, like everybody's focusing on that dark green, that bottom 20%. How can we increase that? And that bottom 20% is mass class 1 recs. So it's apples to apples. It's always mass class 1 recs to mass class 1 recs. Okay, so the next thing, before I share kind of what does renewable energy cost, I wanted to share this, and I apologize to anybody who lives in Eversource territory, but this is the national grid. I know most of Scituate is a national grid. I thought it'd be helpful for the committee to understand how much how much electricity supply costs in general. I find that even sometimes people who spend lots of time working on these things don't always necessarily know what happens to the electricity costs. But here you could see every 6 months, the electricity cost changes. So if you look at your national grid bill very carefully, you will see that in November and May, your bill changes from the month before for the rate that you are being charged. So not only does your kilowatt hour usage change based on how many lights you need to turn on and all those things, but the rate you are charged for the electricity changes also. National Grid tends to have pretty high swings. So you can see this winter, because natural gas is just having a very volatile market, I'll say it that way, the price is really high. It's 14.8 cents. So I'm sure others have, if you've opened your bill recently, you will have noticed December, January bills will reflect that rate. Summer rates, which are the 9s, the 10s at the bottom there, tend to be a little bit lower because the demand for natural gas in the summer falls off. And so that is that is the cost of electricity. Now, this is not the cost that Scituate will start with. It's just when I say like, this will cost you 0.5 cent, it's helpful to know 0.5 cent, how much is that of like about where we could be, right? Like, is electricity 10 cents or $1? Like, this is important. So this is in cents per kilowatt hour. Okay, so here's the meat. Additional cost for renewable energy. This is the renewable energy certificate. I'm making a couple of estimates here. First estimate is that the renewable energy costs the renewable energy certificate, which is a megawatt hour, costs $34. I don't know that it's going to be $34 when we go out to bid, but that's a really fair estimate for the price of where the market is now. The next estimate I'm making is the average residential user. I'm going with what the Department of Public Utilities uses for their average kilowatt hours per month. Okay, so based on these two numbers, I'm able to calculate a couple of things. You can see the rows across. I'm showing a monthly cost, an annual cost, and a per kilowatt cost. So when I was talking about energy being 9 cents, 14 cents, that supply, like you have a sense of where 0.1 cent, 0.3 cent, 0.5 cent, or 0.7 cent could be. And then you could see, right, how much a monthly a user would invest in that additional renewable energy. Again, the tricky thing here is I can't tell you, because I don't have the bidding, right, what that's on top of, because we don't know the base price. This is more for what tolerance do you think the community has to invest? So I'm going to try this. We'll come back to this slide in a minute. That I understand and what. So I thought of donuts. Donuts, my children like making donuts. So there's two things. There's like your base donut, and then you're going to put some frosting on it. So how much frosting is your like Scituate based donut going to get and still stay competitive with some like large national chain donut that doesn't have that amazing, delicious, fantastic frosting? How much frosting are you able to afford to add to your like super local, hyper amazing donut, freshly baked, but still keep the program competitive? I tried to like make the animation with little scales going up and down, but there's not enough time in the day. So that is my comparison to you for like, we are comparing to the utility product. Right now, of course, as I just shared, the utility products are only known for 6 months. So whatever it is, like at our best, most longest term, we're going to know that your program will be competitive for 6 months. We can't guarantee savings after that because we just don't know. And some communities, go more conservative for that. Some communities say like, we're like, the time is now, climate change is here, and we need to take action, and we're going to go with X percentage. So keeping this in mind, that you have a base. Unfortunately, we don't know what the base is right now, but we will know when we're bidding. How much frosting, how much investment are you willing to make in the frosting? And that's this slide. So is it, are you comfortable with $1 a month, $2 a month, $3 a month, $4 a month? So it would be good for the committee to give some thought and discussion to like our minimum percentage. We want at least 5%, 10%, whatever it is. But if the opportunity presents itself, we're willing to invest at least, $3 or $4 or whatever it is per month for the average user for the 600 kilowatt hours. Don't worry, we could do the math backwards based on what the prices are at that time. And this is, one of the things I showed when I showed Brookline, people always ask, like, oh my God, they started with 25%. They passed 2 warrant articles when they passed their version of this community program. They passed one authorizing the program to happen, and then they passed $7. I don't know how they got to $7, but they said, we're willing to spend $7 a month to pay for this. And that has been, some part of their guidance.
So for Brookline, they don't have a percentage, they have a dollar figure.
To be honest with you, I was not in the room when Brookline first picked their 25%, but having a dollar figure that was like, we are comfortable having this as our guiding light was really helpful to feel more confident about what opportunity could be taken at the time of bidding.
Okay.
Daria, can you explain one other thing?
Of course.
These percentages, how do they relate to the other chart that said like 50%, 100%? I think people like, the 50 and the 100. Like,
Yeah, so they don't. They only go to this left one, right? So when I say 5%, 10%, 15%, I guess I should probably put like plus signs there, because that's what you're going to add to your standard product, which is on the left of this blue line.
okay. I see.
No impact to the other 3 products. The other 3 products are what they are. The left product is where the choice is.
Okay, so the other ones are 50% and 100%, and then this standard is like, okay, what's the percent here? That's
right. So like when I said Milton went out with 10%, they met the states, it was 18% of the time, right? They met the states 18%, then they added 10% on top of that. Does that make sense? So that was their calculation. And they were a hair above Eversource basic service rate, but that was the summer, and they felt confident that it was a good thing for Milton and that there was enough support in the community they were 1/10 of a penny. And it is, now they're like 4 something cents below Eversource rates. So winter and summer rates make a difference.
I'm actually trying to, and maybe I'll just say this and then I'll stop saying this. I'm trying to actually figure this out with my current electric bill, because I'm looking at, like, I sign up with New England Green Start and it says 25% next to it. And there's a price, like I pay, an extra $10 a month to do this New England Green Start thing. So I think I'm trying to compare it with this. If anybody else does what I do here, that, if this is a savings above that, and what would that involve, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So is that through Green Energy Consumers Alliance, or is that through the utility? You have National Grid?
It's through Green Energy Consumers Alliance. Yeah.
Okay. I used to remember these off the top of my head, but I don't remember how many cents that is.
I have this, it says green upcharge 0.022 times 505 kilowatt hours. So just.
So 0.022. Her graph is a little bit deceiving. Usually you don't put mils in cents. You usually it would be 0.0068 cents. And that might make it more clear to you. So for you to get what you're getting, if they're charging you $2.25 cents, then the monthly addition is for the $600 bill would be $12 and change.
Yeah.
So
Right.
on the side here, it was at 2.25 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's where it would not 0.68. So they're saying for 20%, they can get it for 0.68. So that's the difference. It's a little unusual for most of us to see cost in cents, not in dollars. It threw me for a little while to figure out what was actually saying.
I see.
Yeah, so I could make this in dollars. I would just add 2 more zeros right in front. I know it's tricky because the monthly cost is in dollars. Believe me, we spend a lot of time like trying to figure out what's the best way to show this. And maybe dollars per kilowatt hour because it's dollars on the left better. But these are cheaper than that because you're getting 25%
Yeah,
for over 2 cents and it'd be.
yeah. Significantly. I'm not sure that anyone else in Scituate will care about that, but it's this is a significant savings. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm in the 100% one of theirs, so.
I hate to ask, this is a question that maybe has no relevance, Daria, but is that might be the stupidest question in the world too. Are we putting Green Energy Consumer Alliance out of business with this? I like them. This is something that, like, they must hate this, no? Or are they involved?
So it's a great question because in a very astute one. So Green Energy Consumers Alliance provides this. So when I say plus 10%, plus 5%, plus 15, plus 20, they provide that additional plus to all except one of our programs that add an additional. So when I say Milton added 10%, that's Green Energy Consumers Alliance.
Oh, okay.
So no, Green Energy Consumers Alliance does not hate this. The reason, the price is different is because they're buying in bulk for thousands of people instead of servicing you one person at a time, which is, as you can imagine, substantially more time consuming.
Yeah.
We met Larry Cretion when we interviewed Good Energy.
Right.
Larry Cretion from Green Energy Consumer Alliance was with John O'Rourke when we interviewed you. So it's a partnership between you and Green Energy Consumer Alliance, right?
Exactly. So it's actually an exclusive relationship. They only service when I say green programs, I mean programs that add additional renewable energy to their standard or default product. And so they are exclusive partner. You as the town can choose not to go with them. That's fine. Because when we say, remember I said we bid 2 things, the base electricity, the base of my donut, and then the frosting, which is the renewable energy certificates. They compete in that renewable energy certificates cost along with other national suppliers. And you as Scituate can choose what you'd like. All of our communities, except one, have chosen, not one was odd, but have chosen to go with Green Energy Consumers Alliance for 2 reasons. One, they don't include biomass, which is technically a class 1 resource, but it is emissions positive, so they do not include it. And then in the mix. And then the other thing is, even though Mass Class 1 allows you to import renewable energy certificates from upstate New York or Eastern Canada, they only focus on New England. Closer the better, the more local the better, because that was what transitions us off of burning natural gas here to building more sources of where we are. So that has been, so that's another point of discussion that could be done. But no, this does not put Green Energy Consumers Alliance. I know they are a well-loved organization. And if you go to some of our community sites, we actually have their resource map on the explanation for the renewable energy that our programs are purchasing. So this is what I have for RECs and renewables and the consideration thereof. I can move on to marketing, or I can answer more questions. Let me know what you'd like to do.
So we as a committee need to start thinking about that comfort zone of guidance to whether it's town administrator or whoever's going to be, fingers on the switch when it's time to launch, what's the comfort zone? And I feel like it almost sounds like a horse race where you're on the phone and you're just like, what are you willing to bet? Or I don't know how you describe that process, Daria, but I guess we'll have to take what you've taught us here and think on it, right? Does anyone on the committee want to chime in, like, I don't think tonight we're gonna vote on a dollar amount or, I know originally we talked about the 10% and I think the standard option is kind of holding 10% in there as a starting point, but it's not etched in stone.
Lisa, is that something we decide or does the selectmen get involved with that decision?
I think the guidance can come from us, and I think they value our opinion since we're trying to understand the, you know, we're kind of leading the charge here and trying to,
Yeah.
you know, be smart. We're a diverse group where it's a cross section of people that were assigned to this committee. It's not like we're trying to push an agenda per se, but I think there is a common goal to try to do clean energy affordably and give options and things like that. So yeah, I think we could go respectfully to the board, to Jim Boudreau, with our guidance, as Daria calls it. And, you know, they would have to justify veering far from that, I think. That's my understanding.
My understanding is the same, Lisa, was that we would be coming with a recommendation, and then it would be up to them, like you said, to you know, if they had better knowledge or whatever, a different comfort zone. But I just wanted to comment that I think this slide is outstanding because we went around and around a couple of years ago. We were trying to figure out percentages, but it was very nefarious when we were talking about what are we talking about in dollars.
Right.
You know, what does that mean to the consumer? And it just, you know, it was kind of like, well, we'll just get the best when we can. And, you know, I don't know, we just felt a little more, but so I think this is really helpful. So thank you, Daria.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback. It's really great. Like, I'm glad it's helping you inform your decision-making and your thought process.
Yeah.
And Daria, is this something, am I on mute? No. Is this something that changes yearly or like when?
Yeah, so you know, consumer usage stays about the same. So that assumption I feel confident about. Renewable electricity certificate costs of that $34. It does change. The market kind of responds to it's a supply and demand. So it's like it winds up being a tug and pull. It's not quite as volatile as base electricity, but it will also have its you know, it's decreases and increases, but that's a fair estimate, like, you know, for some near future. Like, I don't expect that it's going to be half the price if you go out in 2 months. Like, I don't think that's realistic. I think it's going to be kind of around there. But could it be $1 or $2 less or $1 or $2 more? Yes.
So we only have, I want to be respectful of time. There's about 10 minutes left for an hour-long meeting. Where does the committee feel like, does Daria want to cover things like marketing? Do we want to, are there any questions? I just want to make sure we're cognizant of the time for everyone's sake. What's the best way to finish off? Because we're going to go before the Board of Selectmen with, I think, some of this education, and Daria, we can have this presentation, correct? Can we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to present whatever you'd like for me to present in front of the board. I don't think they're going to have 48 minutes to, you know, for me to get into the kind of detail that I did. And maybe just the slide is the place to be. And, you know, maybe the board is going to have to also designate a signatory for the contract. So yeah, I can't speak for the board or what's best for the committee to choose for it, but my past experience is usually that the committee will pick some guidance and then we can present it with whatever background you would like us to include for how the guidance, what the guidance is based on.
Okay. I mean, what do you all think in terms of, I don't know if on February 15th, we're ready to give guidance, but we might just want to give just a state of, you know, what we're thinking. I mean, what do you all want to think on this in terms of, you know, and reconvene about what the guidance might look like? I mean, Daria, how do other towns decide what the guidance is? in timing wise, we're not fully approved yet, right? So could you speak to like what the likelihood of our final approval hitting soon is, or you don't know?
I cannot speak for the Department of Public Utilities. Milton took 3.5 months last year, so it's very unclear where it's coming. It's like it's a black box. I have no idea. But what I want you to be really cognizant about is that with these programs, you don't always have a lot of time to think on things.
Yeah.
If you get approval and the market is great, like you have got to take that opportunity.
Right.
So the more you can get done, right? Like you do not want to miss another month because it might be the difference between like a few tenths of a penny, right? Which is a huge difference. Agree. So the more you can come up with and make decisions now, like we're not going out in February, like I can tell you that confidently, but could you be approved in March and we would go out in March? Maybe. Could you be approved in April and we go in April? Maybe. It could be as late as July. I just don't know because I don't know how fast the DPU will come back to us. And when they come back, I don't know what the market is going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion is that we should pick the number that gets us with this, what are we calling, whatever the standard thing, to equal whatever the close to the utility number, so that people can buy the additional renewable energy for the same price they're paying now.
Right.
And so, and I think that's what I've heard is pretty much the standard out there. And, you know, except for, was it Brookline that said that they were going to pay 7 cents more, or $7 more a month per bill, which actually I think $600 kilowatt hours per month. Based on what they tell me, I use less than that, and I'm way better than all my neighbors. So therefore, that this number might be a little bit on the low side, but that's what I would shoot for. And I don't know how you make that guidance when you're at that point, but it should, if the recs are going to be somewhere between $30 and $40 a rec, and this is 34, and we take 35, that's probably the number that we're trying to get to, on top of whatever we get for the basic rate. I mean, that's my opinion there. And then those people that want to spend more, they can choose the 50 or 100% and, you know, meet their own personal goals. But that's just my opinion at this point. And that's the guidance I would give them. And I don't know when we bid if we're going to be able to get bids that are 5, 10, 15, 20%, so that somebody can make that decision, or we have to give them a dollar amount. I mean, I don't know how the bids come in. Do you go out and say, well, all right, what is the price if you go 5 over, if you go 10 over, if you go 15, 20? Do you know, Darian?
Yeah, it's just linear. It doesn't matter if you get a price for 5 or 10. The price for 15 would be a linear extrapolation of that. So you'd be able to know against the utility what you get.
And then we could choose 12.5 if we wanted to, right? Or
You could choose 12.5. You'd be first.
I mean, if that gets you to where you,
no
where
question.
you balance out, if that's the number, then yes. So that's the way I think the guidance should go to the board is.
I think Scott, you're right. Like that was the original assumption, like when we talked to the board before. Does anyone else feel, you know, and I have Carol Oldman's old voice in my head, you know, think big, you know, in terms of clean energy, but, you know, but I think the goal is to try to keep people whole with the standard option. But again, I'm even a little confused, like if whole is a moving target, like if the basic service rate is also a moving target, I'm not sure what whole means, but I'm still trying to get my head around that.
So
sounds like what we bid them in the spring when the number's low. And that's a strip for a whole year or 2 years or whatever. So in the wintertime, it's gonna be a lot lower if history follows itself.
Yeah, but it
then-
looks like we're out. We're not gonna make winter rates.
No,
I
we
don't
don't want to bid until the winter's over.
Yeah, well, the timing's not gonna be winter, that's for sure.
So,
Does anyone else
Mhm.
feel does everyone agree on that? Or, I mean, we can take a vote if the committee says that's the thinking, or do people want to have more time to think this over? We can also reconvene. And when we go to the selectmen, Daria, if she's willing, can kind of lay this out just like she did for us, and not necessarily, we don't have to deliver the guidance. But how does the group feel? How about you, who hasn't spoken? Mr. Chapman, what do you think?
Well, I'm not sure. I've been out of the loop for quite a while, so I'm really not comfortable making any suggestions at this point, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of us might just need time to digest this, at the risk of not being completely ready. If, I think this month we're not getting approval. So I think I'm fine with, again, just we have to meet pretty regularly now to keep thinking about it and formulating the guidance. But I'm not upset if we don't decide tonight. Is anyone else concerned? I mean,
I'm not
it's,
concerned, but I'd like to give us a date, then a deadline. like,
Yeah.
By a certain date, and then we have
I mean, I think the
another
next,
meeting, but-
yeah, like the next meeting, maybe we just say, that's when we have to come up with, think on this, study this, and think of what Scott threw out, and we can keep asking Daria questions for sure. Good Energy is at our disposal, right, Daria, for questions?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is exactly what we need to think about, yeah.
Yeah,
We're happy to support anyway.
yeah. And then by the next meeting, which we could make, if we're meeting with the board on the 15th, it can be just a very brief update on, that we're thinking of all these issues and we're formulating the guidance. And then meet by the end of the month in February or first thing in March, to create the guidance and put it in, a
Yeah.
formal.
Daria,
that-
can you,
Yes.
yeah.
Just a
that goes.
procedural question for me. If you meet with the board on the 15th, but you don't present them guidance, will you meet with them again in March to present guidance?
I mean, personally, I just think the board needs this education, just like the committee. I think, we can go before them cold and throw guidance at them. I'm not sure they'll understand it.
Yeah, yeah. And Daria, can you, can you go back to that slide that shows what other towns chose like that? I think that might be helpful for the board. What do you think about that, folks? I mean, not that we have to do what everybody else does, but it's good to see what, some precedent here. That might help decision-making too. I don't know.
Yeah, what also I found interesting and that Daria was sharing was this slide, what other towns have experienced. They all tend to go up after getting comfortable with the program. And then
Exactly.
I think there was another slide, Daria, or something Larry Cretion shared with us, just the towns that have gone with aggregation have been making out. And I know the disclaimer, no guarantee of savings. Past does not predict the future. I get it. I have to say that all the time for my job too. But reality is, and I'm sorry certain people don't want to acknowledge reality. Reality is that seems to be a trend that these communities that did it are experiencing. There was a heavy, I think, I don't want to call it bias, but there was a feeling that this was all, added cost.
Yeah.
And it hasn't played out that way in the past.
And how often, what they might ask this, like when did the second contract come up? Is this like a yearly thing or?
I think it's 3 years.
Usually these contracts, unless there's a very special reason for something or other that I don't expect in Scituate, these contracts are usually 3, now they're getting longer into 4 almost years. So you're,
Okay,
and that's the percentage you keep for that time.
got it. Hey, do I see precedent for a 12.5%? What's Arlington there? That's got
11.
Oh, 11, sorry.
I would definitely keep it to the whole numbers, just from a marketing
joking.
perspective.
No,
But like,
I'm joking.
if you want to do 12.753, like that's fine. Like we can go there. Like that's fine.
So with the exception of Bedford, Sudbury, and Brookline, it seems like almost all towns have stepped up to the 10%. And I don't know how many times you're going to get the year of the select board. You know, we may just want to
I know.
give a guidance number from the committee that this is what we think is appropriate after you get educated.
I second that, Jerry.
I agree, you know.
Yeah, sounds good.
I missed, I'm sorry, I'm slow sometimes. What, I didn't understand the strategy. What is that again?
So what I'm suggesting is that our committee now take a vote on what percentage we're comfortable with in the extra renewable class 1 in the default product. And we go to the select board with that, knowing that they're going to require further education.
Oh, okay, yep.
And
Yeah,
my proposal would be that we do the +10, because that's what the board's going to see other towns have done, and they'll find comfort with that rather than be a Brookline.
Yeah.
Jerry, are
Can we
you
go
making
back?
the motion?
Okay, so I make a motion that our committee support extra renewables class 1 in the default product of 10%.
Second it.
All those in, well, let me do the roll call, sorry.
Okay, before you do the roll call, Daria, can you move to the slide again that you were just on that shows the different percentages? Sorry, that helps. Thank you.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
So it's $24.48 in the average residential user's energy bill or electric bill will increase.
What?
No, that's how much more than they will pay compared to the basic.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever our basic is, that still could be less than what the utility average rate for the year is.
Right.
Correct. This is versus basic, sorry.
Our basic, not the utility company's basic service.
Right.
Yep.
So you might, so that $24 is not like, now we're going to pay $24 more. I just want to be really clear, because that is a very common misconception that kind of just tends to get spiraled out and then becomes alive somehow. That's not the case. We don't know. The goal, as I believe the committee stated, is to be competitive with utilities. So keeping that 10%, but still being competitive.
Right. Because our base, this is for the standard option. Our basic could be a lot lower, right? That's.
So the basic won't have that $24 per year.
Yep.
Right. So like estimating based on these estimates, it's just, so if I use 600 kilowatt hours and Lisa V uses 600 kilowatt hours, I'm on the basic, she's on the standard, she's going to pay $24 more. But if like my friend Jess is on utility basic service, she might be paying way more than that, or she might be paying less. That's the unknown. But again, like we wanted the program to be successful. We really heavily focused on launch being successful and competitive.
Yeah, that was my point at the beginning, that even our base, that moving target, we have 2 moving targets. It's not just one. That was the part that I keep having to remind myself. Yeah.
So, you know, some communities have said like, when are you going out? Just give me the most renewables you can stuff and still be competitive with your utility.
Yeah, well, and that's Scott's recommendation, right? Scott, was that the motion you were thinking, or the recommendation you were making?
That was what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'll just give a little background. When I lived in Maryland, they started out having utilities buy 6-month strips of electricity the same way the state of Massachusetts. They ended that and had them buy every quarter, 1/4 of the year's electricity in strips, and the price of electricity went down 2 cents a kilowatt hour because they were dollar averaging down. It's like playing the stock market, putting dollar averaging. And the system here for the utility is not dollar averaging. And so we have a good chance. I don't think we have much of a risk that for any substantial more than 6-month period, we will be more expensive than the utility company. And
yeah. I mean, I
that-
kind of like that, the staying away from percentages, but saying, put in as much as you can, being competitive with the utilities basic service. But
Can we say that though? It's okay, like how,
I don't know, Daria, can we do that?
You can
Okay.
provide any guidance you like. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so I do want to clarify one thing. We are making the assumption. So if we go back here, we're making the assumption that we're comparing ourselves maybe to the valley, to the bottom of that. Obviously, if we're comparing ourselves to the hill, that's a very different picture. We certainly would not advise you to go and draw your line at the hill.
Right. But
Yeah,
that you
so-
would
so-
control that because we wouldn't go out to bid at that time, right?
So again, when you launch and when you go out to bid could be slightly separate. So you could go out to bid in the summer, but launch, several months later, depending on what the suppliers are willing to give and where the best price is. So we bid several things at once. We bid several months in different spread. We built several years in different spread. We bid several renewable energy certificates. Like we try to find the sweet spot by the strategy that we have. So yeah, you can, so we are assuming, 9.7 is a very, very low, 9.8 is very low. It's from, I don't know if you remember at the very beginning of the pandemic, nobody needed natural gas because nobody was going anywhere or doing anything. And that's part of the reflection of that low price, although there's a lot that goes into it. But I think the assumption we're making is that we're comparing ourselves a little bit to that summer rate, and can we beat it or be close to it?
Can we say that something like the guidance is up to 20% making the rate competitive with the utilities basic service rate?
like, do we have to settle on a percentage? Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think one of the communities, they just matched it, and it was, I don't know if it was one of the ones that Good Energy was doing. They caught the market last year at the perfect time when
Yeah,
the basic was way down, and they got like 30. I think that's how Brookline got the 35 cents, but it sounds like it's a little bit more complicated than that. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we could put a cap and say 20% and or whatever matches the utility. And obviously, if the basic is above the utility, we're not going to sign a contract anyway. So, and we're going to rebid it anyhow. So, but I will tell you, in Maryland, they found the day after the utility bid, prices dropped 2 cents a kilowatt hour because the utility is buying the whole state's worth of electricity on one day, whatever day that is. And so the demand, they created their own little spikes. So yeah, I'll make a motion that we try to match the utility costs of electricity with the amount of renewable RECs in 5% increments to the basic bid plus the renewable bid. Did I say that well enough? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, other than if we wanted to put a minimum on there, but, but no, no, we don't have to.
I think if we put a minimum on there and we said 10% and it came in at 5,
Yeah,
the selectmen would do 5 because they're not going to take any flack for increasing someone's utility bill that doesn't,
yep, Yep.
So there's no value to a minimum. And the basic could end up being what the minimum is because that's what we get that day, that time frame, and the market's there. So,
but this is we're maybe I got this wrong. We would be voting on the standard option, right? Not the basic.
right.
So-
So the standard is going to be
So the basic they can still
basic
opt for.
plus whatever the difference to equal the utility. I think it's called basic service that we receive.
Well, the reason I brought that up was that the selectmen wouldn't be raising the rates because someone could opt for basic.
That's right. That could be lower.
Exactly.
I'm fine with that. I mean, Jerry and Lisa, does that sound like something you, first of all, do you understand that option? And would that be something, is everyone, and you too, Bill, I mean, does people feel like we want to vote on that tonight?
Well, I'm just concerned about how are you going to communicate this to the select board?
Yeah.
I think it's a noble effort, and if the committee wants, I'll withdraw my motion.
Wouldn't good energy when they present it to them, tell them what the number is? I mean, basically, they're going to have all the bids.
So the way the bidding process works is there's usually the select board designates someone to be the signee. The signee, in some communities, it's the town manager and they just make the decision what the percentage is based on what they believe, the feedback they've received and what's in the plan, et cetera. Some communities have energy committees. The place where I have seen frustration happen is when the committee picks something that that is so firm that you can't take advantage of an opportunity you see on bid day. That's the tricky part.
That's why I don't like putting a percentage.
Yeah, I agree.
Making a guidance in a moving market. It's almost like saying, well, I want you to buy the Dow Jones at 10% above it.
Yeah.
But you could always say up to 10%.
Yeah, but what happens? We have the opportunity to be 35% like Brookline on that one day that they did theirs.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I'm actually-
I agree. I don't like foregoing the opportunity.
I'm actually on the other side. I would be inclined to put a minimum on it just to say, we want to make this stand, but if we can do better, let's go for it,
Yeah.
But I could be persuaded against a minimum.
Yeah, I would say that once we get out of the difficulties that we're in, knowing how many people are going to the Scituate food bank and stuff that are in town and those needs, that at this point, I wouldn't want to be in a position where people don't quite understand what's going on and they pick the standard because that's the standard, or they don't understand the paperwork and they gets put into the standard and their bill goes up. I don't want to be in any position that puts somebody else in a tighter financial situation than they might be in today, even though we all know that the basic, if we select this, the basic will be less than what the utility company is. It's getting the people to understand that the basic is is there. People don't have a lot of bandwidth. From
Yeah, I
my
agree.
understanding.
I agree.
That's why I don't want to put a minimum of 10% and find out that that's 5% more than the base, than this town basic and everybody, and then we get that
Yep.
fired and this gets removed. Just,
Yeah,
you know,
good point. Good point. I mean, we all obviously can revisit it in 3 years, you know, or. Yeah.
Okay, so I withdraw my motion, and I would like the committee to vote on the proposed motion, so we have something to give to the select board and we can end this meeting.
so that's the second, Jerry?
Subject to wording.
All right, so I propose that we instruct the selectmen to make this, to pick a price for the standard, or not the price, to select the percentage of renewable energy for the Scituate standard rate that equals our Scituate basic rate plus the standard that will match the utilities basic rate that is published in their rate tariff as closely as possible in increments of 5%. That's the motion.
I second it.
Okay.
Can I just, I want to call these what they should be called. I apologize for the word municipality. This should be Scituate. Could you just, so I have it down for our records, could you just reiterate what the
I'll try
motion
it
is?
again.
So-
Yeah, I think it was clear the first time, Scott.
All right,
So which product are we comparing to the utility?
all right, so the Scituate standard product will be compared to the utilities basic published rate tariff for commodity. Make sure and the Scituate standard rate will be the Scituate basic plus the percentage of renewable energy that equals, that matches the utility rate.
Yeah, that puts our rate at the same amount as the published basic service rate by the utility.
Exactly.
So how exact, like, so just because there are times when you could be 1/10 of a cent off, like if it's 1/10 of a cent higher, that's not exactly equal. Is that okay, or is that not okay?
To me, that's okay. What does?
Yeah, the nearest increment of 5%.
The
You
nearest,
can't say
That too, yes.
you can't say equal because you will never equal. It could be not to exceed.
Not to exceed,
Right.
Not to exceed, thank you, yes.
yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, that's a better.
Oh, okay, so but my question is also like, if it exceeds by 1/10 of a cent, that's a no-go. We go back we'd go down 5%.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't like that either, because then it backs us up 5% no matter, for 1/10 of a cent.
So what's the,
There's no way, Daria, we can do it so that it's an odd
Oh.
percentage? Do, you know, like,
Or-
You could use an odd percentage. I mean, Arlington has 11. It's totally fine. You don't have to be in 5s. It's just for marketing. It's just like human brain. It's just where it works. I mean, I think what you're struggling with is percentage or cost. And you can say like, right, like, is the committee comfortable saying like, okay, so if we come back to you and we're like, okay, we did the bidding and you got 5%. Will the committee be okay with that? Or will you say, because that was what matched the utility? Or will you be like, no, that wasn't really great. Like we should have waited for another term. If we came back and said, okay, we got 10%, will you say, well, that's not like, would that be okay? And then if we were like, well, we got 10%, but we could have gone to 13, would that have been better? So I think percentage, like some kind of general guidance on percentage and price would be helpful, because, you know, some communities are like, we're willing, okay, $3 a month seems reasonable. Like,
Yeah, I understand that. Can we say instead of using the 5%, the 2%? And that means that we don't get shot for being that mill over by losing a whole 5%.
Do we need
do
we need anything like that? Can't we just say matches the price and whatever the percentage is?
Yeah, but then you're gonna get, as you said, 12.572%. Oh, actually, people aren't gonna really care
No.
on their end what the number is.
Yeah, I mean, is there an administrative issue if it's some weird percentage that we're backing into? I mean,
I don't know. You'd be the first to get into triple digits on percentages, or even partial digits on percentages.
Cool.
You know, Arlington went to 11, but that's still a whole number. But I think for marketing, it would be tricky to explain like why 12.75% makes sense.
yeah.
And why like you didn't just go with 12 or you didn't just go with 13, because it would have been a really small incremental cost, right, to get to that 13 or something like that. So again, I think, you know, I think you could, you know, you could try with something like, you know, for the basic product, we want at least like not more than the utility. And then for the standard product, we're willing to be at least, you know, at most X amount or something like that. I don't know if that
How about
helps.
rounding to the nearest
Separate.
percentage point? I mean, it's.
Yeah, this is,
Guys,
I assume.
we as a
Yeah.
committee are having a difficult time agreeing on this and wording it. It seems like it would be impossible to market it then.
well, I think once they go out, I mean, Daria, correct me if I'm wrong, the marketing is how much before the bidding?
It's not, you don't market anything until you have a solid bid.
Yeah, that's why, Jerry. So it's not a big deal once we know what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
because you don't know if you could get a price at all. Like
Right.
you don't want to do that.
Right.
I mean, I know I could market this to friends and neighbors if I said, if you go with the basic, you're gonna pay less than what you're paying now. If you add a little green here on the standard, you're gonna be paying the same amount you're paying now, and you just added green. That's my marketing right there. So I
But
mean,
you
that's how.
we can't go out with savings. We can't talk about savings. We
Can't
can't
do
guarantee
that.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
but even if we have a bid and we know,
Because it's not for the whole, it's not for the whole term of the bid. We'll only be able to say whatever's left in that 6-month period of the price.
right,
But if we do the whole, you know, if we do the whole percentage rather than the whole percentage, then it's 13, it's 14, it's 27. I mean, it's a number. Everybody can hopefully understand that, hey, that's the percentage of extra that we were able to buy.
Yeah.
I mean,
the safer route is what Jerry proposed originally, right? That's the simpler route, but just to understand that we are potentially limiting us if there's a golden opportunity to go greener. If the committee's okay with saying for the sake of simplicity, we'll risk that 10% is the number that we at least do better at, and we give them clear guidance to start with 10. Our second contract, we get a little more sophisticated with guidance. I mean, what do people think? I hate to give up the opportunity to go do better than 10%. I really do. But I get that this is really hard for people to articulate to the board. I mean, Daria, if there's any other town that's come up with a better way to give guidance that's gets us the most we can. I mean, you see where we're headed as a committee. We'd like to get the most green we can, but not make people pay more than the basic service utility rate that's on the open market.
Okay, so why don't, so I'm glad you voiced that, because that really helps kind of come back to guidance, right? You could say, like, we want at least 10%, but if the opportunity is for higher, we're willing to be within like 0.5 cent of the summer rate or something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, because 0.5 cent is like, so if you're, so I don't know what the summer rate will be. If it was like what last summer rate, it's 9.7, you'll be at like 10.3, like past performance, not indicator of future performance. So like, I hate expecting what National Grid will do going forward, but you know, this is, I promise you that when we're in that bidding room with the town, if we think this is not going to be a good program long-term, we are not going to get the town to agree to it. Like, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing for us. It's not a good thing for Scituate. It's not a good thing for climate goals anywhere in the state. Like, it's just not a good thing.
Right.
We want a successful launch.
All right. So Scott, do you want to take a chance at a motion, articulating a motion in that regard? Do you feel comfortable with that?
So, let's see if I got this. So, the guidance is that we are shooting for a goal of 10%, but it's a minimum goal of 10%.
Yeah.
And the opportunity exists, we will be within 0.5 cent of the utility summer basic price as published.
Sorry, did you include the word above?
Above the basic. Oh, there's Scituate basic and above the plus or minus, and what is that? Let me got through the summary. I gotta. So our guidance is that we want a minimum goal of 10% renewable energy in the Scituate standard offering. If the opportunity exists to purchase more than 10%, the quantity purchase shall bring the Scituate basic rate plus the renewable rate equal to plus or minus 0.5 cent, or you want to use 5 mils, which is easier, of the published utility basic rate for commodity. We're only talking commodity. I don't want anybody to get messed up on that. So, did you get that, Daria? Is it still, does it make sense?
Okay. I think I know where you're going. Do you want me to take a stab at where?
Yeah, why don't you take a
Yeah,
stab at it?
if you could
Maybe can-
re-articulate it in the terms that are understandable to you as the broker.
Yeah, so I would say for the Scituate standard product, the goal is the guidance is a minimum of 10%, but if the opportunity exists to not exceed the summer utility rate by no more than 0.5 cent.
Then
do we need to add something that's the Scituate basic plus the renewable, or you don't need that?
No, because that's the definition of the Scituate standard product.
Yeah, that's
like
the
it's
definition.
2 parts.
Yeah,
All
the
right,
guidance
that's
is for the standard product.
All right.
The guidance is just the standard product. Yeah, we don't need to include like it's basic plus percent. Yeah, don't worry about that. Like it's just the standard product.
All right, that's my. I make a motion for what Darian said.
I mean, I'm happy to make it. I'm happy to try to, I understood that from you, Scott. Is that enough to me, for me to second it?
I would second it, subject to further wordsmithing as necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Let me go down the list. Kathy,
Okay, approve. Or yay, or whatever, yeah.
Scott, you still need to vote.
Yes,
Lisa,
Aye.
myself, I. And Mr. Chapman.
he's not
He
here.
left. He left.
Oh,
Do we not
You
have
gotta
a
do
quorum?
Jerry. You gotta do Jerry.
Jerry,
Aye.
Jerry. And yeah, Jamie left, right? Yeah. So that carries.
Great.
Good. Seeing that it's now 7:30, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion, I second that.
Okay, roll call.
Roll call. Kathy,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
myself, I. Thank you, everybody. This was
And
tough.
no, I'd like to vote also.
What?
Jerry.
Aye, and thank you to Daria.
Yes, absolutely. Daria, this was so helpful. You brought us out of the closet, you know, we had some cobwebs in the head.
My pleasure. It's this hard stuff. Like, this is tricky because you're trying to kind of square yourselves against like what is very unknown and then try to find guidance. Like, this is hard stuff. So thank you. I think this went really well.
Yeah, it did really. Thank you so much. So meeting adjourned. Thank you so much all for staying on so late. And I will follow up with Lisa. I am assuming, you're not taking minutes, right? Am I taking them? I took notes, so
Great. Thank you.
yeah,
We can
I did.
put that
I'll
on
take
record.
care of that. So
Yeah.
thank you, everybody, and I'll
I'll
send you around
post
the.
them. Just if you send them to me, Lisa, I'll post them, make sure they're posted.
Okay, great. Yeah,
And then at our next meeting, we'll take the roll call on approval of the minutes.
and approve the minutes, correct. Yep. Okay, thanks for the reminders, Jerry. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank you all and have a
too.
good
Good night.
evening.
Right.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.